Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinela. We hope you enjoy the show. Mr. David Buck, welcome and good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you sincerely for joining us for an episode of the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where optimization is also a lot about the topic that we will directly discuss today. A wonderful person, Cheryl Hickerson, knew enough about the two of us and certainly our missions as it relates to our individual businesses, really focusing on optimization. Never perfect, but always striving.
Thank you. And yes, kudos to Cheryl, the consummate networker and bringer of people together for this opportunity. And again, thank you, Scott, for this. And I love the word optimization because obviously it's near and dear to my heart too.
So let me give you share with our audience a little bit about your bio, and then we can just dive into some of the projects that you're specifically embarking upon, which are very exciting. I know probably at times also somewhat overwhelming. So, David Buck, in 35 years of business development, you developed a strong awareness of what it took for people to be productive and efficient, not just busy. You also personally sought to gain a balance of having a successful career along with the ability to pursue a meaningful personal life. What a concept, huh? The balance between personal enjoyment and fulfillment as well as professional. Well, that led you to start Kairos Management Solutions and then the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program, focusing all your attention to guide business professionals who struggle with a lack of flexibility in their life to gain more quality personal time. You help your clients craft a strategy around their current management of time and then define a lifestyle of intention, ease, and joy. In April 2024, here we are right now.
Right.
You're going to release your first book. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
The Time Optimized Life. The book reframes the reactive nature of time management and replaces it with a proactive method of time optimization. You and I are running similar paths, my friend, in that we have been hosting and producing, if you will, the Optimized Advisor podcast. I would say somewhat intuitively in preparation for what we've just launched, which is the next chapter in our team's professional journey in optimized insurance planning, or OIP. So both of us have a lot on our plate and a lot to be excited and thankful for.
Yeah, and congratulations on that as well. And I love the tie-in of the optimization aspect to me. One of the reasons why I really don't like the term time management, because to me, manage, nothing against managers, but the concept of manage is usually reactive in nature. It's like I've got something that's come up, I got to handle it. And to me, optimization or optimize is more proactive. It's I'm trying to anticipate as best I can, knowing I'm never going to get it perfect, but at least I'm proactively out there saying, how do I address upcoming challenges to put me in a position to own my time better? And so that's why I gravitated to the word optimization and try to get my clients to think the same thing.
So, if we may, this is a topic that I'm very intrigued by, also just constantly challenged with, not just us directly, but also with those that we align with and serve. Right, we serve and partner with many of our financial advisors all across the country, and so I love the statement that you made about really taking ownership of time, because all too often I get the sense and feeling that many of us look, we're hard charging, we're entrepreneurs, many of us are also limited in resources from a capital and human capital standpoint, right? We're just trying to do too many things all at once, and it all too often it's this sense and feeling of I am at the mercy of time. I'm a victim of time, as opposed to me being in control of my time. And you also stated in the bio of this novel concept idea of gaining more quality time.
Right. Yeah, and it's actually I named my business after one of the words for time for Greek. So the ancient Greeks have two words for time: chronos, which is the measurable time, the quantitative time, and then you have kairos, which is the quality time, the quantitative time. And to me, it is about your better use of kairos time or chronos time in order to have more kairos time, more quality
Mhm.
time. For me, some of the best moments, two best moments in my life were the birth of both of my kids. I got to be there for both the birth of both of my sons. Now, I could simply say one was born at 5:03 p.m., the other was born at 12:28 p.m., and I kairos those or I chronos those moments. But
Mhm.
the Kairos moments was the deep richness of getting to hold my children for the first time. Having my wife, just amazing wife, sitting there watching her be a mom to both of our kids. Those are all deep, rich moments that you don't measure, but they're your experience. And so to me, you use Chronos to get Kairos.
Interesting. So, can we give an example of how you may help an advisor begin? I understand, or I would think recognition is first, and then it's like, okay, I need some kind of measurement, and then of course I implement. This is kind of where my mind
Mhm.
goes, but all too often the challenge is actually recognizing reality.
Yeah, and I help advisors in two ways. One is I help them directly or their firms directly on internal aspects about the productivity within the firm. And so to start there first, my acronym is PEC: preparation, execution, and control. So you prepare, and that is thinking forward. That's the optimization part to me that says I'm
Mhm.
proactively looking out there. You then start to execute against what you've prepared for. And just like anyone in the military, a lot of times you make these great plans, and the minute the first shot is fired, sometimes the plan changes. And so you have to say to yourself, as I execute it, wait, do I have to stop and go prepare? But then if execution's okay, then you have to say, am I controlling the outcome? Because you can execute all day long and find that you're kind of a hamster in the wheel a little bit. You think you're productive, but and so control says stop. Am I meeting the goals? And then the three have an inner relationship with each other that continually you adjust accordingly, and it never ends. So even though you may finish a task, a project, or item, you then carry that same philosophy over to the next project, idea, or things. And so that's what I deal directly with advisors on their own ability and use for time.
Interesting. So in your this is the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program, or this is an element of?
It covers both. So the Infinity Lifestyle Design is I have like the in career aspect. So with financial advisors, they're in career. I help them optimize their lifestyle in career as much of it's in work and as much as they'll allow me to say, tell me about their personal life. Then we try to do that holistically. And then the second element that I do with the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program tied to financial advisors is help their clients plan their retirement lifestyle that is in alignment with the financial strategy that the advisor has created for that client, so that the advisor has the ability to coach the client a little bit more on, yes, you have the resources to do this, or yeah, the mountain chalet that you want in Switzerland, I don't see that in the plan. So we need to rework that so that the two work together to help the client have the best flexible lifestyle as possible.
So what's interesting about that is that yes, you do work with advisors, but the more interesting part for a moment I like to transition to is that you're now and also pivoting to working with the advisor's clients.
Yes.
What is
Yes.
that? How did that evolve? How did that get to seeing the light of day? Because initially I would think, oh my gosh, an advisor would be pretty protective, if you will, or vulnerable to allowing this quote unquote outsider to have these intimate conversations with my clients.
So I actually found I deal with obviously advisors and their clients. I still deal directly with clients. That's the two ways I get them. But what I found was the question I started to ask clients was, do you have a financial advisor? Or someone would come to me, they'd start to talk to me and say, they would ask me a detailed financial question. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the lifestyle guy. I am not the finance guy. I don't want to
Mhm.
manage your finances. And so I found I need to broaden my network of financial advisors for my end so that my clients, if I have somebody who's seeking, I have somebody I can trust and know to send them to the financial advisor. And I really don't take any more clients who don't have a financial advisor, because what I find is if I invest the time and they invest time and money in me, and we craft this wonderful lifestyle strategy, if it doesn't tie back to any realistic setup that's already been done, it's useless to the client. And so I proactively started to reach out to financial advisors to say, hey, I know you have a set of clients that are headed into retirement. I know I'm going to have people who don't haven't done the financial due diligence heading into retirement. Maybe we can help each other out.
So how did that then really, or can you elaborate, not not names or anything, but how did that eventually matriculate its way to seeing the light of day specifically? Like what materialized to make that all a direct reality?
So typically, what I do with financial advisors, I call it a creep, crawl, walk, run. In the fact that I realized, to your point you brought up earlier, financial advisors take sometimes decades to get trust, to achieve a level of trust from their clients.
Mhm.
And so, who's this guy that's all of a sudden going to come in and try to tell them how to live a lifestyle? And the financial advisor is worried, would somebody like me take what is years in development and all of a sudden it goes away? So, what I work with advisors on is to say, test me. And so typically, as I start to work with an advisor, I say pick a client that's close to retirement that you've got a uh, good relationship with, and test me. Kick the tires. Tell the client, hey, we're thinking about potentially using Dave. So go through his program. So I offer a free 1 hour consultation through the assessment tool I provide, with the express written purpose of the client goes back and gives a report card to the advisor. And if they don't like what they hear, they don't have to get involved. And then it's a slow,
Hmm.
gradual process that goes through, so that in the end, every financial advisor I work with, it's a custom program. Not one's the same, because every office or every individual's different. And so ultimately for me, my goal is to be able to provide a value add service, say like a trust lawyer or an accountant might provide to a financial advisor, an outside service. I'm one of the spokes in the wheels to help improve client satisfaction and the experience. But it's custom designed so that I bring value add to the financial advisor.
That's great. Um, Typically, do you find that is everybody in conflict with time and time management? Um, how do you and how do you help them untangle that?
Yeah.
For too many of us, it's like again going back to how where I started here of it's like the calendar controls me. I, I'm not in control of my calendar, and I really want to change that.
And the idea of, yes, we almost are we time lag, meaning the events we seem to be chasing events instead of us allowing events to chase us. So the general person today, the biggest time management challenge that we all have is distractions. And I define distractions as internal. They're internal aspects that you allow to stop your focus. Our
Yeah,
smartphone is the single biggest tool that causes distractions. And so
1000%.
and so for us as individuals, in order to overcome that, that's a series of things that I'll work through. Again, it's customs for people. It might be their environment that's causing them distractions. So that you work in a noisy office environment and you just can't stay focused in that respect. Others, like I said, it's the phone. Um, Distractions could be down to bodily functions. I got to go eat because it's distracting me. But whatever it is, there's certain trigger points and we work through to help do that. So distractions is the biggest element, but it runs the gamut from procrastination to saying no to even personal care. If we don't sleep well, if we don't exercise consistently, if we don't take breaks during the day, if our nutrition isn't good, that's all going to impact all the other elements of our life. But the good news that I tell people is, even if I have 20 categories, or 20 attributes tied to 5 different categories. If you stink in all 20 categories, which I haven't found somebody yet who has, but just say you do, if you start with one, they're all interwoven. So if you improve in one, others are going to improve along the way, so that you get into a cadence that finally you begin to see real benefits about, wow, I'm able to be done at 5 instead of 8, and I actually have more time to do other stuff.
So with that, let's transition to the your current work,
Mhm.
which is the Time Optimized Life, the book that you've released now this month
Right.
or imminently. Um, how is it different than other, time management resources? And well, that's one part. And the second part is, um, what does this really enable individuals to accomplish?
So, on your first question about what makes this unique, I credit my wife. As I was writing the book, she
Of
actually
course you
has
do. Of course you do. A
right there. You
shameless
go.
plug.
And well, her quote, her enthusiasm actually ended up her writing a chapter in the book herself. But
Okay.
one of the things that I was doing as I was writing the book is, I wanted it to be practical because I think a lot of times when you read self help or personal development books, the person writing the book is at a stage in their life where they're probably a step away from what the average person is dealing with. So, good news for me, I consider myself average in that I'm living a life that I think most of us do. But she really emphasized to me, she said, there needs to be a practical nature to this. Like, what are my key takeaways? Not everyone is the same. And
Mhm.
so, someone reading this, you may write a great book about time management, but somebody might look at this and say, this doesn't relate to me. So I spent a lot of time in the book, and it is designed to go back to this customization aspect. If you get to a particular section in the book, and let's say you're good at motivation, like your self motivation carries you forward, you don't need to waste time reading that chapter. You can move on to the next chapter where maybe I stink at meetings or meeting preparation. So there's an assessment tool that I use called the time management analysis. It is something that my clients take first to give us a foundation to understand what I need to work with them on. That actually became the outline for the book because I'd done hundreds of those. And so I had this amazing data set to draw from to be able to say, these are the things that people are challenged on when it relates to the ability to say no. And so I was able to provide practical solutions because I had real people in front of me with the data that was telling me that.
So let's talk a little bit about no. I mean, I love this conversation from somebody who is, I can do more. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Let's take this project on. Yes, we can generate revenue in this vertical. Yes, I can do all these things with as a father and as a husband, and next thing you know, you're way overextended and committed. The other thing about no is, well, with every yes does ultimately then require a no somewhere along the line, right? So how do you help individuals recognize that? What comments do you have in that topic?
So for me, the no is the word. It's a negative word. People don't want to use it because you don't want to either not be perceived as a team player, not wanting to come alongside and support others. So I use the term no, but I say no, but. And the
Hmm.
idea is it's not necessarily telling somebody no, but it's negotiating for a better outcome that fits your time frame. And the only way you can do that, and this is the interconnectivity of time management, is you've got to know what your calendar is and you got to know what your workload is. And if
Hmm.
you understand those two, then it becomes more of a negotiation. So if Scott, you came to me and said, Dave, I need you to do this, then I can say, Scott, I've got three other major projects planned. And Scott, my next 2 days, my calendar is totally full. So, can we provide let's talk about some alternatives to that. What's the priority to this? And so you get into a negotiation question time frame that then you work towards an outcome that benefits you, where you eventually still get to say yes to the other person, just more along your time frame.
But in every case, there are certain circumstances, right, where it's like a yes can't come. I definitively need to decide that this
Mhm.
isn't going to work for me for various reasons. And some people really struggle with that because you're correct. And no is a negative term. It's a negative word. It means I need to close the door on someone, something. Um, uh, and but I'll challenge a little bit and say in some cases that is the better answer. That is the optimal solution.
Yes,
Uh,
it is. I agree. Sometimes it is a hard no. You have to understand in front of you, are you allowed to say that hard no? So a lot of times in when I work with companies, you have a hierarchy, obviously, and a subordinate has the boss come to them and say, I need you to do this. And the subordinate's typical default answer is, yes, I will get that done. But
mhm.
my flip side to that is you say, you've already given me these three other things, or my job description says I have to get these done. Help me prioritize. Where does what you're asking me do fit into that? And if it's number one, then you need to help me understand what is two, three, or four so I meet your expectations. And then when it comes to outside of relationships that are either peer level or someone who's coming outside of your sphere of influence, then no gets to be more pronounced because at that point you're negotiating time that's important to you, and you also have to say, am I solving their problem for them? So is the use of my time for them, or is the use of that time for both of us? And if it's for them, then you kind of push back and say, why don't you go try to give some details around that and then come back to me so you can delay them to say, this is just a skeleton. I need some flesh on this idea. And you make them go give you some specifics instead of solving the problem for them.
Yeah, I mean, I like the approach of kind of putting it back on not I don't know if the word is deflecting, but to be able to put it back on the fact that I understand you're now telling me I need to add an additional item to my plate. So I've already got all these other items on my plate. How how should I prioritize this? And what it does, that does put it back on, in this case, the management position and helping the person through that. But what about in our personal life? I find a lot of the times people are just in personal conflict because on the one hand, without really giving a thought to the time commitment or allocation to certain things. It's like, I want to do all of these activities. I want to be involved in these different hobbies and sports, and I want to be involved and be present with my kids and want to go on vacation, and I want to do all of these things without really putting a lot of time and thought into a perfect example, really using and leaning into, and maybe this is correct or not, but your time management analysis.
Yeah, and personal side of life can be much more difficult than the professional side because there could be even more emotional elements to it. Uh, but you have to carry the structure that you have. Our careers bring a natural sense of structure. We know basically our expected time commitments. You probably know what a typical
To me,
day
it's
might
like
look
more
like.
finite. Like
Yep.
professional time is easily, it's easier compartmentalized as finite.
Perfect. Well stated. I agree with that. When you head into the personal side, you have to try to drag some of those good habits along with you. So, for example, my wife and I affectionately call what we call our dueling calendar time. So, about once a week at least, but usually a couple times, we both bring our calendars and sit down across from each other and say, what's happening? What do I need to know about? What do I don't need to know about? Do you need this as a hard thing on my calendar or not? So then I know the major events that she's got going on. She knows the major events that I have going on. And I really wish we would have done that sooner when our kids were in the house, because I don't know how many times I was at the point like, oh, oh, I've got that tonight. I hadn't even thought about it. The kids have got this. It's soccer tonight. That's the big game. And so the more you are able to say, we're going to spend formal time together, investing in what the calendar looks like, you naturally then have the extension of the structure of professional applied to the personal, and it actually makes the two easier to transition from one to the other because you're kind of using the same process to set things up.
That's great. I love that. That's a great nugget. Good takeaway. So let me ask you this question. What is the most effective way that you personally have found or professionally to calendar? Is it purely digital? Is it paper? Is it a combination of both? As a household, then how do you also calendar? Like specifically, what do you use?
So I am now totally digital. I have done everything under the sun. Again, I don't tell people they have to do one. I have done, from the Franklin Planner days, Michael Hyatt's Full Focus Planner, which is a fully written thing. But I do digital calendars and I use Outlook, but Google, Outlook, and Apple all have very similar functionalities. So, and to me, the calendar is the single most time management tool you have, or I really optimized tool you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I plan every hour of every day. Um, even if it comes down to work or personal time, it's
How
on the
granular
calendar.
do you get?
Um,
I know you say
it
every hour, but like
Yep.
in particular, let me use give us an example of a couple of what what we would all consider like very minute items.
So for me, for example, a minute item that's on my list is uh, I do a lot of my prospecting and potential client engagement on LinkedIn. I have a goal every day of sending out 20 connection requests to people who I consider are my ideal client just to get introduced. I have a nugget on there right before lunch every day that's notated on my calendar to send out 20 connection requests to it.
Hmm.
And it's there every day. Now, for me, calendar planning, I plan 2 weeks out. This current week that we're in, obviously, is baked really hard. Next week's is baked, but I know things are going to change. And so I may have 2 hours blocked off for example, researching this particular client area. But I know I've got it blocked off, but I know it's a B level priority. And so if a actual client call comes in, or somebody wants to book time on my calendar, I know I can override that and I'll adjust accordingly. And then if you look at I have a series of reoccurring tasks. So for me, I'm in the process of writing my second book. And so I have periodic reoccurring tasks set up going forward for the next 4 or 5 months that are out there that says these are the times I'm allocating for writing the book.
Hmm.
Knowing again, they can change accordingly.
And you also it sounded like you prioritize your time allocation with A, B, so on and so forth.
Yes, and so I do a color coding system based upon categories. So for me, if you look at my calendar, anything that's in a yellow is client related because I want that sticking out. That tells me when I look at my calendar for the next day or I look out the next week, I need to ensure that depending on what's expected by that client, have I allocated enough prep time and have I blocked off enough of a follow up time or after client
Hmm.
note writing, all that stuff. And to me, particularly for all of us who use a calendar and we use like either Calendly or some other app that allows people to then block time on our calendar. One of the things that I do, again, it's all across whatever calendar format you do, is I set up all the time so my calendar is filled, but I don't have the internal designation showing busy. So I see it on my calendar, but a potential client or prospect doesn't see it and they can book in that time. So then if they override it, I got to figure out what to do there. But if it is important to me, whether it's client or something important I have to work on, I make sure I block it off so that a client doesn't have the ability to book time onto my calendar because that's important to me.
That's great. Those are good. That's some good stuff there. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Maybe we can, so in wrapping up here, uh, not to take on the topic today, a little teaser. Maybe we can have a follow-up conversation at some point on goal
I'd
setting
be honored. Be honored.
and how to properly set goals, which I think you don't, or you do say set goals.
Mhm.
What's your take on that? I think I saw one of your newsletters on that where you delineate between goal setting and
So the idea, yeah, the concept between goal setting and just setting something aspirational, or a lot of times I use this a lot. So behind me, if you're watching, if not just sitting in the room you're in, if you say I want to paint this room, that's a goal. You could say that's a goal, but there's not enough detail to it because there's a whole host you have to do to paint the room. You got to pick the color, you got to pick the type of paint you want, you got to get the supplies, you got to prep, and all of those take us a level of time. So for me,
Mhm.
people have a tendency to make these broad statements that they say are a goal, and ultimately, yes, but there's a series of activities that need to be done. So to me, goal setting is about all the details you need to include to achieve that goal. And some of those could be a goal in and of itself. So for me, just getting out of this chair and going to the store and buying the paint that I need could ultimately be a goal I feel good about, with the ultimate goal to then slap it on the wall and make it look good.
That's true. Okay, yeah, that's a very simple but understandable example in the sense that uh, uh, you're saying I want to paint the room. Well, there's 6 to 10 individual goals that need to be set and accomplished before the room is painted.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. And they take various levels of activities. And that's why people procrastinate because they lay out a vague goal and it allows them to keep kicking the can down the road. Versus if you just say, I want to paint the room, but then set all the sub goals underneath it, you feel good because you've got progress. Even
very
if it
well
takes
said.
you a little longer than expected, you still say, okay, at least I have the paint. So at least I can now paint the walls. Now where I got to carve out the time to prep the walls.
And you help your clients in that journey, right? I mean,
That
that's
is correct.
part of what you do. Yes, wonderful. Okay. How do people how should they get involved with David Buck? Where do they go? Where do they go to get your book? How do they engage with you? What are their next steps if they want to know more?
Thank you. First of all, the book is on sale at any of the major retailers online. So whether it's Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million, you just search your favorite online bookstore and it'll be there. And then eventually it'll be out in broader in bookstores itself. I would just say if you want to learn anything about what I do in career, post career, the book, all that stuff, just go to infinitylifestyledesign.com, infinitylifestyledesign.com. And just on the front page, it'll take you through what you want to do to optimize your life.
I want to do it all, sir. I want to
I'm
live an
there. I'm there
optimized
for you.
life. David, this has been enlightening and informative. I really appreciate your time. Thank you to all those listening. Until next time. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment, or review. Be sure to check us out on social media at Optimized Advisor Podcast. Till next time.